Surviving, still working remotely as you can see, but loving life, staying busy. Yeah, we gotta do it outside one time. Show us the chickens next time. Yeah, because you can. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's I feel like we've talked about that
No,
part of
that's
it.
I feel like we talked about no, that's I feel like we talked about no, that's I feel like we talked about no, that's
Oh, and my mic was turned off. How about that? So I don't even know if people were hearing me. Yikes.
Dang. Okay, rewind.
Yeah, we gotta. So we
Let's
have to rewind. Good thing this is pre-show. So Zach, I got to tell you, it's been 3 weeks since I've done the show. I had a cancellation a week prior to the holiday. Then we took the holiday, and then I've got a brand new co-host that she takes shows opposite me, like either if I can't do it or guests that are more in her pipeline. And speaking of, she just got on there. She was going to tell me she couldn't hear me, Maddie. And so I haven't done the show for 3 weeks, and I'm like a little rusty. So here I go. We start off talking, and bam, no sound on my half, and then we echoed on your half. And so both of us here, you and I are both, at least supposed to be somewhat of a veteran on this show. So, of course, I had to mess up when Maddie, my new co-host, was on, so she can tell our producer and they can fire me, right?
Well, it was just testing her to make sure that
That's
she was
test.
paying attention.
That's right.
So,
Oh yeah. So last week was her first show, and man, she knocked it out of the park. Here's the cool thing, and you see you kind of see in the background here. You'll see when we get to the actual show that we have a new logo and a new roll-in jingle. Our good friend Ben Brennan actually. He says he's a psychiatrist, but I think he plays better guitar. Anyway, he did the intro for us, and love it. He's so talented, and he kept telling me he was going to do this for us and get us a new jingle, and it was all me because I just never said, come on, Ben. So he got us a new jingle. It's really cool. Thanks to Maddie being able to work with him. Maddie works for Ben, so it was really cool. But we were trying to get some more talent on our production team, and I kind of wanted a co-host so that for like example, next week I'm going to be traveling to the mothership, back to, to corporate headquarters. And as I shared when the people couldn't hear me on the pre-show, it's in Arizona. So when this show's going on, at what time is it out there, Zach? It'll be 4 o'clock?
Yeah, 4.
Yeah. It'll be 4 o'clock, and I told you I don't get done till 5. So there's no way that I'm sure my boss would let me, but it's just better. So having Maddie on the team as a co-host for the show is just awesome. So loving that part of it. But so anyway, since they couldn't hear us, I'll ask you a question again, Zach. It's been a little while since you've been on the show, man. What's been going on?
Well, I mean, it's hotter than heck here. I don't know how hot it is in on the East Coast.
It's like 90. It's 86 degrees here, but the problem is our humidity is so high. Like, I don't know if you deal with humidity, but we're up in the 80s and 90% humidity. So
we luckily, or not so luckily, I guess if you like it, we get dry heat, but we're triple digits.
Yeah.
Most of the time. So it's 103 right now. I just pulled it up.
Yep,
so.
That's hot.
But still working remotely.
Nice.
Still busier than ever.
I know we're going to get into that a little bit on the show tonight, but it's kind of nice that your company puts their money where their mouth is to say remote work, because we're going to talk about that tonight. We've been talking about that on several episodes you've been on. Funny, Maddie says it's 108 in Dallas, and I know because one of my coworkers lives in Dallas, and I was just talking to her today, and the funny thing you said about dry heat, I made that comment to some of the people I'm going to be visiting next week in Phoenix. I said, yeah, but I heard it's a dry heat, and they said, yeah, it's like having your hairdryer blowing in your face the whole time.
That's the problem.
That sucks.
You get some wind, right, and it cools it down. Instead, it just blows
the heat. Yeah. We relish the breeze up here because the humidity's nasty. But man, the dry heat. Yeah, I guess if it's like that. But anyway, so remote working, and we're going to talk more about this. But I'm not sure if the market has changed or not on the job market. And I know we're going to get into that a little bit. So if you're listening to the pre-show, hang in there. Zach and I are going to chat about basically a catch up of the last time we've talked about, where the hiring market is, the job market is, what you're seeing with companies as far as practices. Has things changed since the last time we've talked? I know, we've talked for the last 2 years. I think you've been on the show probably, almost on 2 years, right?
Yeah, we've been doing it pretty
well, this is season 2, and we actually started in November of 2019. 2020. Yeah, so you came on early on in 2021, and now we're mid 2022. And I know we've been talking about not only like the pandemic, and we're so over the pandemic, but now we're talking about like how has it changed the landscape and the culture for companies. And I know you and I have talked about during the pandemic, companies need to think about changing the way they do things, and we'll chat about that. Like I shared with you, my last job, it was 100% in the office. So I had guys that were network engineers that would drive all the way into work just to log on to a remote system.
Yeah, those are conversations that we have every day. I mean, not only have companies changed their hiring practices, but candidates have changed the way they're looking for jobs.
Isn't that crazy? Who would have thought? Now, we talk about movements in this country, but that was like a movement. Well, I guess you'd call that like grassroots, right? Like crazy.
People right there. That's right.
I mean, it wasn't even like we all got together and said, let's march on Washington, D.C. and demand, whatever we're going to talk about in 30 seconds here. But, but it happened, right? And that's the cool thing. I mean, it's kind of like a teaser for the show, but everybody listening knows, what we're chatting about, because it's real and it's been in our faces for forever, but forever, like 2 years now. What, we're going on 3 years for this pandemic, damn it?
Too long.
Pardon me. Sorry, we'll have to edit that out.
This pre-show.
We are on Twitch, so it's okay.
Yeah.
All right, we're getting ready to go live, Zach. We'll cut over in a minute. So. Welcome, everybody, to our weekly HDI Local Chapters live stream show. Our show is brought to you by Robert Half Talent Solutions. They are exactly that. They find talent for companies, for organizations, as well as they find jobs for job seekers looking for those awesome companies. And the cool thing is they offer a lot more than that. If you check them out on their website at roberthalf.com/technology, they offer up a lot of other good things like career advice, interviewing advice, hiring advice, even, and we'll talk about this in the show, their coveted salary guide that helps not only employees but also employers know what the market is for the jobs out there. So without further ado, our guest tonight is Zach Jiru from Robert Half. So hey, Zach, welcome back to the show.
Welcome back.
Regular guests, as we were talking in pre-show, Zach and I are regulars on the show, and we kind of had a couple kerfuffles there at the beginning. I forgot my audio, and he had his on triplicate, so it was great. People could hear me through yours, but
Yeah.
Before we get started, Zach, I do want to say, if you watched our show last week, there was a different face. It wasn't me. We have a new co-host, Maddie. Maddie is awesome. She not only brings a new flavor to the show, she helped create a new logo, which you saw in the intro jingle, and she coerced, her boss, Ben, who's been on our show several times, into doing our new jingle. So thank you, Maddie. Thank you, Ben. Thank you to my live stream production team. We love them all. So Zach, let's go ahead and get started. We're talking about, the workplace has gone through monumental changes in the last couple of years. We've talked about, with the pandemic and things like that, but it's going to continue, right? So, there's just going to be so many things that's happened in the pandemic that's changing the way we go forward. Let's start off, though, by talking about, where we are now. You've been on our show several times. We've talked about a lot of this. Where are we now with unemployment in the job market?
So it's crazy to think, right? When the pandemic started and we were railing about the economy and how things were booming and unemployment was hitting historic lows, and then the pandemic hit and, we didn't know what direction we were going to go, and places were closing, and, people couldn't get remote fast enough, so they were getting laid off. So things seemed like they were just up in the air. And now when we reflect back, almost 2 years, we're virtually back where we started. June, let's see, we have June's unemployment numbers. We have a national unemployment rate of 3.6 just last year. So in the pandemic, the unemployment rate of June 2021 was 5.9. So, I mean, massive drop. And then pre-pandemic, right? I mean, that's so long ago, but we were hitting historic lows in the 3.5s. So we are virtually right there. And then since we talk so much about technology and those types of roles, a lot of those roles are very specialized. Oftentimes, people are going to school, they're learning this trade. So when you look at unemployment rates for individuals that have, degrees, went to college, those rates are even lower. As of June, it's 2.1.
Wow.
That's on the national average. And the scary part is that when you look into specific job titles, when you narrow it down even further, the rates get scary low.
I was going to ask you, when you say the national rate, is that for all job markets, or is that just technology? And, is that, because I know I shared with you on a previous show when I worked at my last place, I couldn't, we know there was other reasons, we'll chat about those, but, even trying to get people to apply, and I'm talking like network engineering positions, systems engineering positions, and I still had trouble. These were 6-figure salary jobs. Yeah. And I was like, once they got and heard my cultural pitch, they turned around and laughed. But before that, even getting people, even then, and this, I'm just talking like back in May, not that far back. So just curious on those numbers.
Yeah, so we look at it across the board. You made mention of our salary guide, which will break it out based on industry, so we can take a look at, technology, or we work with a lot of HR folks, so they'll look at a bunch of different departments like HR, or they'll look at accounting, they'll look at finance. So we break down in the salary guide across all those different departments. The statistics I gave you are just national averages, but just know technology is even lower.
That's what I was wondering. Wow.
And what you ran into is very common. And a good gauge on that is when a place like Robert Half is finding it difficult to have multiple candidates to present, I know it's even that much harder for companies to have multiple applicants to take a look at as well. So
and it's funny you say that, because I remember working with Robert Half at my last position to fill my my local Pittsburgh team. And I know Michelle would get on. She'd call me. She's like, "You gotta hurry up! You gotta hurry up! These people aren't gonna." And she wasn't kidding. I swear to goodness, by the time she hung up the phone with me, the candidate had already taken another job. I'm like, what the hell's happening out here?
Unfortunately, I had 2 of those calls just this morning. Employers getting back to me, wanting to set up interviews and take next steps with candidates, and I had to do unfortunately, the candidate that you requested, I was the one typing the denial email, if you will.
Yeah, the rejection letter to the employer.
Exactly, that's what I felt like, right? But
that is so funny. So we've talked about that, though. It's really weird how there's been a movement to change the culture in not only hiring but the actual workplace. So let's talk a little bit about that, Zach, because I know we could sit here and talk forever about this, but like what one of the things that your studies have come up is like, don't underestimate remote workers. So what's the trend? What's the expectation? What's the demand? And what's reality for companies?
Yeah. So if we take a look at the patterns that we've seen over the last, again, just year and a half, we're taking a look at surveys that we've done relatively regularly, 6-month mark. So if we go back to June, so right around this time in last year, when we were asking, we did a survey of our own, how many people plan on looking for a job within the next 6 months?
Yeah.
Around a third of the people that responded said, yeah, I'm going to look for a job. And when we think about that, it's, well, yeah, right? You were one of those guys.
I was.
I don't know if you were part of our survey, but
I did take it.
Yep. Fell into that percentage. And, why is that? Well, we look at companies having to compete for candidates nationally. We look at those companies that are opening up their positions to remote applicants. We know that salaries have increased, steadily as companies are literally having to buy talent and buy candidates and applicants. So 6 months later, we repeated the study, right? So beginning of this year, end of last year, same question. Hey guys, where are you at? Are you planning to look for a job within 6 months? Well, guess what? People are looking for jobs again. So over 40% now of people are saying, yeah, you know what? I'm going to start to look for a job. And so now here we are again, 6 months later. I wish I had the news stats to share with you, but I can imagine Robert Half is going to publish the results of those studies here shortly. But I can only imagine that the number is going to continue to climb and people are going to continue to look for jobs.
So here's the thing, though. Like, if there was, and I know the pandemic has wrecked this one too, but let's just say I have a car dealer down the street who's got 200 cars in the lot because they just have a lot of cars. I'm not going to go down and buy one just because they're selling cars, right? So people wouldn't be looking for jobs if they were happy where they were at, right? So what's the deal? What's causing them to say that?
Yeah, so we do a lot of follow-up, right? So we don't just leave it, here's the results, fend for yourself, right? So that's one of the things I really like about Robert Half is when we dig into these types of statistics, a lot of it is, okay, well, what's fueling that looking for more positions other than salaries, obviously, skyrocketing. So one of the most telling follow-ups that we had was having to do, and I feel like we've been beating this horse for what, a year and a half, 18 months, 2 years, buddy, is the remote piece, the flexibility piece of it. So over half of all respondents, 54%, said if they were asked to go back into the office, they would look for another job. Imagine that. And I know you have a team of people, right? So you have a rather large team of people, which, I mean, you work with companies that have tens, 20s, hundreds of people that, you know, are on their IT teams. Imagine now that company decides, you know what, we're going to have everybody go back into the office. And overnight, half of those people decide, nah, I'm going to go look for another job. Half of them. Now, in a team of, you know, 20, could you make do with 10 people? Probably not.
No.
But if your IT team was 4 and 2 of those people just left.
Yeah. Ouch.
So that's really where we see the biggest push is the flexibility. And, you know, it doesn't have to be 100% remote, but again, just the willingness to entertain the idea of a hybrid schedule, or we've talked about before about windowed work. And that's just, you know, again, having the flexibility of working 8 hours, but maybe it's not a traditional 8 to 5, right? So having that is the biggest proponent or the biggest.
So I'm going to guess that you when you did the survey, you may or may not have done like a age range, because, you know, maybe some of our listeners or watchers are thinking, well, yeah, the millennials, because that's the great thing, right? But I got to tell you, my wife and listen, this is no millennial age here. My wife said where she works now, they're still remote because that's just the way it is where they're at. But they're talking about coming back, and she works for higher ed, so they're on, you know, the semester basis. And she just flat out said, she even told her boss, she goes, "You go back, you know, you want to go back to the office? I'm done. I'm not even looking for another job before I'm done. I'm done." Because it's just, she spends, because we both worked there at one time, we spent an hour and a half each way commuting.
Oh, the commute, right? Yeah. Remember, you told me about that. We
14 miles. 14 miles. That's it. Remember I said it was a city of bridges? Not good to cross in. Very constricted. So, but Zach, we're coming down to a couple minutes left in the show, and I really want to ask you, you know, we talk about remote work, and I know that I have a team now where I'm at that's fully remote. Matter of fact, only 2 of them live in the same city as the home office because they were there before the pandemic.
Sure.
There's got to be some concerns, and I don't mean employer concerns as far as productivity, but what about emotionally? Like, are we worried about like our teams spending so much time in front of a screen and a camera, right? Because meetings used to be in person, and then you go work on your machine, right?
So, great point. I'm kind of glad that you brought that up too, because I'll use myself as an example right now, right? I'm in a position, I was telling you this, right? I woke up yesterday, I wasn't feeling great. I came to work today, I'm still not feeling great. I'm sure you can hear it. I don't sound great. If I had to go into the office, I would not go in this condition, right? Like COVID or not, it's just don't go in when you don't feel well to get other people sick, right? Working remotely, I have the luxury of continuing to work, right? So I don't have to call in sick. I can do that, right? But what does that lead to?
Yes.
Right? It leads to burnout. People are feeling more and more obligated of being in front of their computer, answering emails because they're at home.
Yep.
So that employee burnout and that work-life balance is something, right? We all have it. It's connected to our hip. Our email is on, well, my email is on my phone. But that work-life balance is something that employers need to be cognizant of, and employees need to be, you know, self-reflecting on that. Are you providing yourself the appropriate amount of balance? So along those lines, again, we dive into the stats, right? What's making people leave? What are you happy with your current employment? And what we've seen is we had a recent study about 41% of workers now feel like they're burned out on the job now more than what they were a year ago. And why is that? Well, you've probably been working remotely for over a year, right?
Yes.
And there's a lot more piled on. Employers have this, some employers have this idea of, well, if you're at home, we can just keep giving you more and more work to get done. And I mean, we've seen studies come out where employees have actually increased productivity when they're working remotely.
Yep.
So that doesn't mean keep piling on more work.
Right.
Because the increased burnout leads to, again, calling in sick. That is the trend that goes, man, if they're going to keep piling on work, if this is the pressure I'm under, guess what? I am at work. Guess what else I can do at home?
Yeah.
I can apply for another job.
Yeah, I can interview and you won't know.
It's that delicate balance of, again, that work life, that flexibility, and that's a lot of pressure on managers.
Yep.
I manage remotely, as I know you do.
Yep.
It's a unique skill I've had to develop over the last few years, diving into people's emotional state and having that connection and creating that culture where if somebody's having a bad day, instead of me being able to see it and hear it because they sit right next to me, they can reach out to me virtually, send me a note, and we have that open line of communication. That is a unique skill in today's job market.
Yeah, and I know we're just about out of time, but I wanted to say, like, my boss, I love my new boss, and I won't mention him because he's very known in the HDI community, but he is, I don't know if he knows he's doing this. I think he does this on purpose, but like if I told you he's on the West Coast and I'm on the East Coast, and if I send him something at like 6 or 7 o'clock my time at night, because I know he's still there, he usually won't respond back to me because he keeps preaching the work-life balance and he's very serious about it. And it's refreshing. I mean, I don't mind handling something here and there as long as the expectation is, and I don't have to work 10, 12-hour days consistently. But man, he really believes it and tries his best. So he's big time concerned about that. So got to give it to him. So Zach, before we go, any last parting words? You mentioned something about some kind of a guide earlier. I want to make sure we talk about that a little bit.
So shameless self-plug, salary guide, Robert Half. Obviously, we're always updating it. We are looking forward to updated statistics, new information, new studies, more research, online salary guide. We will have access to it around mid-September.
Nice.
So providing access, real simple, reach out to anyone at Robert Half. We can get you on a distribution list. We walk you through it. It's a little bit different every year. We always highlight something new. DEI was a big thing that we did towards the end of 2021 into 2022. I love that information. It's been a big push here at Robert Half, but that was something new that we added. And a lot of information around that, how companies can get involved and what employees are looking for. So look for more of that value add information in the new guide.
Yeah, you guys always hit on those hot topics. So it is time for us to wrap up. First, I want to thank you, Zach, again for being on our show and thanking your company, Robert Half. Not only do they sponsor this show, but they sponsor HDI local chapters as a whole. And Zach, I know not only do you work for them, but you also are a local chapter officer in your local chapter. So, this is a great place to meet awesome people like Zach and other guests we've had on the show. People like Maddie, who's my co-host, and all of our production team. So go out to hdilocalchapters.org to find out more about us. And again, follow us on Twitch. If you like this content, subscribe to us, like us. We do broadcast this also, or broadcast, I take that back. We upload this to YouTube as well as broadcast live on Twitch. So please, check us out and join, man. It's a great organization. You meet a lot of great people. Hey, Zach, thanks. I know we'll have you on the show again. Not sure if you're going to be able to come to Pittsburgh for the local chapter officer summit, but man, I hope so, because that's my hometown.
Yeah, I'll go check out some of those bridges.
Yes, all 400 and some of them, right? I understand this past weekend they closed one of them for Picklesburg. We have big
Oh,
because the Heinz pickle was so big in Pittsburgh where Heinz was headquartered here. But anyway, I don't want to prolong the show and get fired by my production team and let Maddie take over too soon. So thank you. Have a great evening. We'll see everybody again next week for our next show. Thank you, Zach.
thank you.